good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Navvy and Spotlight information webinar. We are so excited that you are with us this early Monday morning. I apologize if you have been in here since I launched the meeting and keep seeing the chat with the bit.ly, but I know that anytime anyone new joins in that they don't see the previous chat. So I want to make sure everyone has access to that. It is on the screen. But I am also putting it in the chat and I will be monitoring that throughout. But welcome, my name is Rebecca Stokes. I am the product manager for SchoolNet with NCDPI. And we are having this session and we have wonderful women from Pearson with us today to talk about Navvy and Spotlight. This is going to, pending board approval, be a part of our opt-in process this upcoming school year. More like a cafeteria benefits situation like you are used to with your insurance benefits. We're hoping to be able to add some additional products that you can choose to opt into for the upcoming school year. So I am going to go ahead and turn it over to all of our lovely presenters from Pearson just so they can introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kiana Winstead, and I work with Pearson. I am a program manager in school assessment, and I'll be reviewing some information about one of our product offerings called Spotlight today. Katie?
Hey everyone, I'm Katie Wilczak. I'll be sharing some information about Navvy with you this morning. I am also a program manager with Pearson, and I work specifically with districts and states that are implementing Navvy. So excited to chat about that a bit more with you. Catherine?
Good morning, everyone. Catherine Simone. I am the SchoolNet Implementation Manager for Pearson, and happy to see you all this morning. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jolena James Zanton. I am your assessment consultant. I work with district sales for K-12, and I'm here to support you in your process of bringing Navvy on board in terms of purchasing.
All right, well, I'm going to stop sharing so that I can turn it over to whoever is going to be sharing from your side. And then I will be monitoring the chat. So if at any time you have a question, please put in the chat and I will make sure that it gets answered.
Thank you, Rebecca. I will go ahead and start sharing my screen and allow Katie to get us started with Navvy.
Awesome. Thank you all.
1 second.
No worries. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about Navvy, then we'll transition to Spotlight, and then we'll have some time at the end for questions. But certainly, please share questions at any time as they come up. You can add them to chat, and I know Rebecca's going to help us monitor that. Also, if you're able, I'm not sure if it's something that is allowed by this webinar, but if you're able to, please feel free to also come off mute, interrupt at any time. We want to make sure that your questions are answered. So, all right, awesome. We can go to the next slide, please, Kiana. All right, this is just a reminder of our team. We all got to introduce ourselves already, so thank you for that. I'll share a little bit about myself. Again, I'm Katie Wilczak. I've been with Pearson for only about 5 months. My background is in assessment, specifically classroom-based assessment and performance assessment. So I was really excited to join the Pearson team specifically to work on Navvy because it's a really innovative tool that Pearson has recently acquired that allows teachers to focus their instruction utilizing data, standards-based data in a really flexible way. And so as someone who I consider myself a little bit of an assessment nerd, I think it's actually a very, very strong product that really allows educators to do that and also allows folks at the district level and the school level to be able to utilize that data to support their teachers in very strong ways. So excited to join that team and also to be able to share Navvy with you today. Next slide, please. Right, and we can go to the next one also. So why did we create Navvy? So a little bit of background is that Navvy was created by Dr. Lainey Bradshaw. She's a professor at University of Georgia. And I like to share a little bit about her background because I think it does highlight some of the unique aspects of Navvy and really why it's different in the field. So Lainey is a math educator, K-12 math educator, and then she went on to do her doctoral studies and she focused on psychometrics. And so psychometrics are all about how we measure learning and specifically how we might do so in novel ways. And so what she saw as she was engaging in her studies and having that very strong foundation as an educator was that there wasn't a tool for teachers to use that had the same rigor and accuracy as some of the more summative assessments that would give formative data to teachers in the classroom. And so she wanted to develop something that would then work for those educators. And that's how Navvy came about. It's been in existence and developing for about 5 years now. And then in 2022, it joined Pearson. It's one of our core products now in our classroom assessment and the assessment for learning suite that we are continuing to develop. Next slide, please. So a few reasons for Navvy. We start a school year, we have standards, we have learning targets that really outline what we hope our students will learn during a school year. And our whole purpose as educators and really as the education enterprise is to help students learn those standards with respect to whatever content area you're in. And then once you're in the school year, you've been teaching, you've been progressing through your curriculum, you've covered standards, a set of standards, and you want to understand, didn't the students learn this standard or did they not? And as I mentioned, prior to Navvy, there was no tool on the market that you could really use in a standard by standard way to definitively tell you, has a student learned this? Can we get this diagnosis of, yes, this student has learned this, or no, they haven't learned it yet? So Navvy was built to meet that need, that we could inform teaching and guide learning with accuracy. So using that accurate identification of what learning has taken place in order to guide learning, and by doing so with trustworthy evidence. You can go to the next one. If you think about the assessment system, I'm sure you're all very familiar with the many different assessments that you have in your schools or districts, right? But you have summative, interim, and classroom-based assessments. Summative, those are, often the year-end assessment. They have a lot of technical quality behind them, right? There's been a lot of work done by assessment developers to ensure that they are accurate, they are reliable, they're measuring what you want them to measure. However, often the data comes back to you very much after taking the test, sometimes months after students have taken the test. So it's no longer very timely data, and it comes back at a pretty high level, right? Usually you're getting something back about a student has performed in the X percentile of math, or the student has a score of 680 in 6th grade math. And so that data is not super actionable. We then have interim assessments, which have become much more popular in the past 10 years, and there's been a lot more development going there. Often those are ones where you take them beginning, middle, and end of a school year, and you get data that's a little bit more specific. You might get information about a student's performance in geometry or in algebra rather than just in 6th grade math. And it is a bit more timely, right? You get it results a little bit more quickly, and because it's spaced out throughout the year, it is a bit more timely. Then you have your classroom assessments, where often those are teacher developed or they're part of the curriculum that you're utilizing. Those are very timely, right? Usually the teacher can deliver them as necessary, as deemed most appropriate by their instruction. And they're pretty specific. They can often target a standard or even a specific learning objective within the curriculum. However, those don't yet often have the accuracy and reliability of those summative and interim assessments. And it's really important that we have that accuracy. Again, next slide. So that we can accelerate learning, and ensure that the data that we're getting from those classroom assessments is accurate, and it's at the rigor, the level of rigor that we're going to see in those summative and interim assessments. So when we marry these three things together, next slide, please, we're able to provide teachers with the timely data that they can trust and at a grain size that they can use. That's really the intention of Navvy, is adding in that accuracy to the classroom-based assessments. This also allows us to draw some more connections between data that you might see, again, on those summative assessments. Something that we often hear from particularly school leaders and district leaders is that the data that teachers are seeing in their classroom-based assessments is not necessarily what we're seeing on the summative assessments. You might see that students are doing very well throughout all those classroom-based assessments, and then they go to the summative, and that's not aligned with what you're seeing in the classroom. So Navvy has that alignment in that the rigor of the questions and the psychometrics behind the diagnoses of competency or non-competency is really well aligned and similar to what you're going to see on those summative assessments. Next slide, please. So I know we've talked a bit about kind of the specificity or granularity of data and why it's important. I wanted to call out a bit more why we think it's very important to have this standards level feedback. So Navvy is really based around personalized learning and the whole idea that if we better understand what students need, we can meet them where they are with that need and help them to continue to develop. In order to know where they're at, we need to have data at the right level and the right specificity to be able to target that support. However, we've talked about how this is helpful to teachers and educators. It's also very helpful for a variety of stakeholders. And Navvy was developed to be able to support many different stakeholders, specifically students, teachers, and then administrators. So students, when they receive specific targeted feedback and data about their performance, that supports their self-regulation, supports their ownership of learning. And we've really developed Navvy to support student healthy growth mindset so that they can understand where they're succeeding, where there's room for growth, and be set up for success to continue that growth. For teachers, if they have this data, they can personalize instruction, they can better support their students. School and district administrators, they're able to then personalize support for teachers or be able to identify needs across different schools, really be able to see those patterns in the data to be able to target support. And certainly the same when you look up at regional and state administrators, they're being able to use this data to better support all of the folks within the ecosystem to really be able to support student learning. Next slide, please. So we've talked a bit about the background of Navvy, why it's important, how it's different. Now I want to share more what exactly is Navvy. So there's 5 key features that I like to highlight. The first is that it is standards aligned. As I mentioned, these items or questions are developed at the level of rigor as similar to a state assessment, which is really dictated by what the standards require, right? So it's at the rigor of those standards. It's going to be able to assess the breadth and the depth of a standard to be able to truly and accurately diagnose competency. I mentioned a bit about psychometrics. Lainey, our founder, is a psychometrician, and Navvy utilizes a novel psychometric approach to be able to diagnose competency on that standard level. So it's something that is a bit different from some of those larger scale assessments in terms of the strategy, but it's utilizing the same principles of technical quality of assessment to be able to diagnose that. The next thing is that they are pre-built. So Navvy assessments are already created. They exist within the Navvy platform. teachers, educators can go in and assign those assessments at the moment of need. So whenever they feel it's necessary or helpful within their instruction and what's happening with their curriculum to get that data back about student learning, that's when they can just go ahead and assign those assessments. It's very flexible, and it also does not require the teacher to do assessment development. They're built around a healthy learning mindset. So the entire platform is built around a healthy learning mindset for students. What that means is we have built-in celebrations for success. We allow multiple attempts to succeed. So the goal with Navvy is to be able to demonstrate competency. If that takes a couple of attempts, that's fine. If it takes one attempt, that's also fine. It's really about learning and about celebrating that learning and being able to utilize the data about your learning as a student to continue to progress. It provides real-time, detailed, and accurate data. So unlike summative or interim assessments where you have to wait to get a report back, in Navvy, you can just see the data immediately. As soon as a student takes an assessment, the data is available to you, it's available to the student, and it's available to district or school level administrators. There's also many very helpful dashboards, and I'll show some screenshots of this later, but lots of different ways that you can look at the data. And I think Navvy has done a really good job of providing a lot of the data that you might need, but doing so in a way that is very digestible, so you can easily find the data that you're looking for. And then we're partners. So I know some of y'all have worked with Pearson previously with different products that we offer. With Navvy, we continue to be a partner and really want to support your implementation and use of Navvy. A big portion of my work is working with the districts that are utilizing Navvy and supporting with training, with professional learning, with strategizing around pedagogy within your school or district. So we're always here to kind of support your use. Next slide, please. So we talked about the 5 kind of core aspects or features. These are the things of what Navvy actually is. So if you were to start utilizing Navvy, what you would see when you open the platform is 3 core areas or 3 kind of core tools that you can utilize. They are competency checks, practice checks, and instructional resources. We'll go into these in a little bit more detail on the following slides, but essentially the core of Navvy is these competency checks, and that's what you can utilize to diagnose competency standard by standard when you need to do so in your classroom. There are also practice checks, and those are similar assessments that can be used a little bit more flexibly and in different ways to support learning in your classroom. And then there's instructional resources. So let's say a student has demonstrated that they're not yet competent on a particular standard. We have resources that you can then utilize with that student, or the student can utilize on their own in a self-directed way to target some work with that particular standard and begin to work on that unfinished learning so that they can then demonstrate competency. Next slide, please. All right, so competency checks, and we can go to the next one. So as I mentioned, this is the core of Navvy, or the kind of main offering of Navvy, is these competency checks that are pre-built and they are designed to diagnose competency on one standard. So each competency check is aligned to one standard, and there'll be 6 to 8 questions aligned to that standard within the competency check. There are multiple choice items, multiple select items, and then we also have technology enhanced items. By responding to those 6 to 8 questions, the student is then diagnosed as competent or non-competent on this standard. That information is all instant because these are all auto-scored questions. And they are secure. So that means that the teachers are not able to see the questions prior to or after administration of these competency checks. That really allows these to maintain their validity and reliability, and that's how we're able to diagnose competency. So the purpose of these is you teach, you say, I wonder if Katie has mastered, standard EE8A in math. And so you assign a competency check to me, I take it, and then you get the data, and I get the data of, yes, you're competent, no, you're not. In addition to that diagnosis of competency, you get very specific and detailed analysis and reporting. So you'll see by DOK level, by component of the standard, where have I demonstrated competency, where have I succeeded, and where have I not? And we'll share some screenshots of what that looks like in the future. Okay, next, please. And I can't see, are there any questions at this point? It doesn't look like
There are none in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so practice checks, thank you. Practice checks are similar to competency checks. However, they do not diagnose competency. So these are flexible pools of questions that you as an educator can pull from to design little practice checks that you would assign to your students. They're at the rigor of the questions in the competency checks. And they're going to provide the same data and analysis of performance. And they're really designed, though, to be engaged with and to learn by doing. So they can be utilized as homework activities. You could use them as class activities. You could look and examine items together as a class with your students. You can engage in some conversations around common misconceptions after looking at student performance on these practice checks. But they're really kind of more flexible ways that you can utilize the questions that Navvy has. One of the cool things about these also is that you can assign them on grade. So if I'm a sixth grader, you can assign sixth grade level ones to me, but you could also assign prior grades. So let's see that say that you're seeing I'm not doing too well on a sixth grade standard. If there's a fifth grade related standard, which we know there often is, particularly in math, you could assign a practice check to me of that fifth grade standard. And then I can engage with that and really build fluency by working on that practice check. And you'd also have all the data from the practice check to then be able to identify where to support my learning within that standard. Next one. Okay, and finally, we have the instructional resources. So these are new resources that we're adding for school year 23-24, and it stems from a need identified by teachers to better be able to target support for learning a specific standard if a student is demonstrating non-competency. We know we have our kind of primary instructional materials in our curriculum, but often if a student has not learned something through utilization of that curriculum, we don't want to just do the same thing, right? We want to approach learning in a different way and a really personalized and targeted way. So for each standard, Navvy includes a toolkit that has a series of instructional strategies that teachers can utilize to target learning on that standard. Then there's also going to be a small group activity and some individual activities that students can engage with to better develop their skills related to that standard. Next slide. One of the things that I love the most about Navvy is that it's flexible. It can be used with any curriculum that's aligned to the standards. So because Navvy is standards-based and most curriculum is standards-based, anything can be utilized with Navvy. You can also flexibly decide the order in which you're going to assign competency checks. Teachers can decide when they want to assign competency checks and practice checks. It's really designed to be a tool that provides helpful and useful data for teachers. It can be used in one content area or across content areas, and it can be utilized in combination with a variety of other assessments. So as we mentioned in the beginning, there are specific purposes for those other assessments, summative, interim, etc. There's also purposes for the existing classroom-based assessments that you already have. Navvy can be used in combination with those to better support and augment learning. Next slide, please. Okay, so you may be wondering, after all of this, what offerings do we have in North Carolina? So for ELA and math in North Carolina, we offer competency checks in grades 3 through 12, practice checks in grades K through 12, and then we have the instructional resources in grades 3 through 12. These are the offerings that we are providing through Homebase, and Jolina can chat a little bit more about some of Navvy's other offerings that aren't necessarily part of the home-based opt-in program.
Thank you, Katie. And I just wanted to ask for clarification for home base. Are we doing K-12 or 3 through 8?
That's a good question. So for home base, I believe that the opt-in offer there is for grades 3 through 8. And then there are additional offerings in ELA and math grades K through 12 that are available in North Carolina just outside of home base.
Excellent. And I'm going to piggyback on that and share that we also have those additional offerings, or add-ons, if you will, for science. And so for the competency checks that Katie just shared, it's going to focus on the standards for grades 5, middle school, and biology. And for the practice checks, you'll have available items for K-8, biology, chemistry, and physics. I did want to share we also have social studies, which goes from grades 3 through high school and includes U.S. history, and that's both for competency checks and practice checks. In case you have science educators or specialists who are wondering, our science items are aligned with next generation science standards. And so those are the gold standards for science standards. Katie, if you remember what the social studies alignment is, I'm having a brain burp right now.
Yes.
But if not, we'll follow up with folks.
Yes, the social studies offerings are aligned to the C3 framework, and they're really based on the inquiry domain of the C3 framework.
So I'm going to pop off, but if you are interested in pursuing those Navvy add-ons, please reach out to me or to Catherine, and Catherine can connect you to me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jolina. Okay, and I see that there is a question. Oh, sorry,
I was just about to say, Katie, there's a question in the chat, but I see that you see that.
Yes, thank you. So question from Leslie, what are the advantages of Navvy over NC check-ins? So I'd love if maybe Kiana or Catherine could share a bit about this. I'm going to be fully transparent. I'm not as familiar with the North Carolina check-ins as they are. But my understanding is that check-ins may be more tied to scope and sequence and curriculum, whereas Navvy is a bit separate from that. However, I'll let Catherine or Kiana chime in here with better context.
And sorry, Catherine. I was just going to speak on the check-in part. So just to clarify, the NC check-ins are from our testing and accountability office at the state, and they are mandatory to use. So I know districts are using that because they have to. So I will let them speak on the Navvy piece. I don't know that there's necessarily an advantage of one over the other. I think they would just both be helpful in you gathering data for your students to know how to move forward. So I think they would both give useful data.
So to add on to Rebecca's response. While the NC check-ins are mandatory, Navvy offers you more of a formative day-to-day type of assessment where the check-ins, correct me if I'm wrong, Rebecca, are a point in time that the state requires. Is that correct?
Yes. So it'd be more of like a benchmark type
Yes.
assessment.
And Navvy can be utilized every week, bi-weekly, every day. It's definitely more formative in nature than the check-ins, shorter than the check-ins as far as number of questions and um, just pinpointing specific standards rather than a large summative type of assessment. Leslie, does that answer your question?
And can I chime in as well? Is that it is used to, Navi is going to be used to complement your NC check-ins. One of the features in terms of the growth mindset design of it is that students have multiple attempts. It's going to allow personalized learning, and it is explicitly a diagnostic measure of the student's competency. So it's going to let the teacher know at what depth of knowledge is that student's cognitive understanding of that standard. And it goes to all three depths of knowledge, 1, 2, and 3. And so that's going to, as Kathy was sharing, if you're going to reteach, you'll be able to capture, does the student understand that competency now and at what level?
Perfect. And I think the next little section here is going to share a lot of the kind of data dashboards that you'll see as an educator, that a student would see, et cetera. And I think that will help also to kind of capture the grain size of data that you're seeing and the formative nature to be able to highlight some of those differences with those check-ins as well. So thank you for the question, Leslie, and please keep the questions coming. All right, we can go to the next slide, please. This is shared, I believe the bit.ly that Rebecca shared has a link to this entire slide deck, but if you click on this tiny URL or go to it, you'll see a full FAQ doc about Navvy, so please feel free to check that out. It has a lot of details that we covered, some that we didn't cover, but I encourage you to look through that and then also continue with questions. Okay, next slide. We'll dig into the educator and student views in Navvy. So this is the main screen that a teacher is really going to utilize in Navvy. So what this is a dashboard where you can see the progress of your students standard by standard with all of the competency checks that you have assigned. So on the left, you'll see student names. These are your roster of your class. On the top up here where you'll see 6EE1, 6EE2, etc. Those are standards. These are math standards for a 6th grade math class. Right now, this is showing us the standards that the teacher has assigned a competency check for. There's also a view where you can see all of the standards within this course and which ones have been assigned, etc. So that green check mark, that means that that student has demonstrated competency on that standard. The X means that the student has not yet demonstrated competency. And the color of that X relates to the number of attempts that the student has taken. So as we mentioned with the growth mindset and also with really the goal of each student achieving competency rather than each student achieving it on a certain timeline, et cetera, we want students to be able to take a competency check and then receive instruction and support in their learning if they have not demonstrated competency, and then be able to come back and engage with that content again to ultimately be able to demonstrate competency. So that's what you're seeing here. If we go to the next slide, please. You'll see that we can filter this data so we can sort and look at all of the students, for example, in this screenshot who have not yet demonstrated competency on 6EE8. And we can know then, okay, this might be a good group to target for small group instruction, or I can meet with each of those students individually, or I can assign an additional assignment to them, etc. But they need some support with that standard in order to get towards competency. Next slide, please. You can also then look across and see how a student is performing over time on different standards and identify where an individual has some strength and some areas for growth. And then the next screen, this is my favorite one. So this is, imagine that you had clicked on one of those X's or checks within the whole table previously. It's going to bring up this a whole other screen of data about that student and about that competency check. So you'll see across the top, there's a summary. You can look by DOK, by component. My favorite is to look at DOK by components. And so what you're seeing here is the standard broken down into 3 different components. So we want to look on that very detailed level. Sometimes standards cover a lot, or they're very interrelated or complex. We break those down into different components so that we can really hone in on where the student might need support and where they're doing well. We then also break down by DOK level of the questions. So we want to ensure that the DOK level of the questions is assessing what the standard requires. And we also want to make sure that we're seeing the breadth across the DOK levels within that standard. So in this instance, we can see that the student did well on those items in component 1. So that green plus means that the questions related to component 1, they answered correctly. But the questions related to component 2 and 3, they did not answer correctly. So we can then know, okay, this student needs more support on component 2 and 3. And then we also see for, DOK level 3 and 2 is more where they're struggling. And that's, not uncommon. Those are asking them to do more complex things and really apply more complex skills. But having that data allows us to, again, then identify those patterns over time, really focus our instruction, maybe more on analysis, etc., to be able to support students with those rigorous questions and really developing those skills, not just so that they can get these questions right, but so that they have those core skills to be able to engage with DOK level items and really questions. Okay, next screen. So this is what, the prior screen is what a teacher sees. It's also something that a student can see. This is the student dashboard. So the core thing that a student sees when they log in, and they'll see check marks and this little kind of badge on standards where they've demonstrated competency. We really frame it as, they're on this mission to collect badges and be able to demonstrate their learning over time. You'll also see that for the standards that have the 3 little dots and that they're blue, those are standards where they've taken the competency check, but they haven't yet demonstrated competency. We don't want to put a big X or have any red or anything there. We really want to communicate, hey, your learning is in progress in this standard or for this standard. And you can click in there, you can see more data about how you might be learning well and not learning well, and you can also access some resources to help support your learning. The standards that have a little lock, that just means those have not been assigned to that student. Next slide, please. And this relates to something I mentioned earlier about practice checks, but is relevant for many reasons, and I think pretty helpful to educators that you can see student progress year over year. So many standards are related, grow and develop upon one another year over year. You can go back and look at that data and see how a particular student performed in a prior year. You can also then assign a practice check to either gather more data about how that student is doing on that prior year standard, to be able to provide them with some opportunity to engage with the content and to build fluency, etc. But this really helps you be able to see the development over time and be able to help pinpoint where you can provide support. I'm going to show 2 more screens before I stop and allow questions. So this is for school and district level reporting. We have a lot of different options for looking at data across the whole district or across the whole school. What you're seeing here is a school level data report where you see standard by standard what percentage of students are demonstrating competency and on which attempts they demonstrated competency. You'll also see in some of the percentages on the right how many students, what percentage of students this standard has been assigned to, etc. So you can really utilize this data to better see trends across classes, identify where there are successes, maybe target some PLC work, etc. And then the next screen is showing you some of the similar data, but this one has a lot more options related to filtering. So you can really target in and look at comparisons between different standards, 1 or 2 standards. You can look at comparisons between specific schools. You can also see some demographic data. We certainly want to make sure that Navvy is supporting competency across different demographic groups and that we're really able to target support where necessary to be able to ensure that all students are achieving competency. So this is kind of a master report where you can just look at tons of different stuff, and it really depends upon what filters you're utilizing, what data you're going to be able to target in on. So with that, I'm going to stop because I know we want to have time to talk about Spotlight, but I'll also pause and see, are there any questions about Navvy before we transition here? Okay, well, thank you. And I'll keep monitoring the chat. We definitely look forward to any questions that you have, but I'll turn it over to Kiana now, who's going to chat about Spotlight.
Thank you, Katie. Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Okay, great. I know I had been quiet for quite some time, so I wanted to be sure. So good morning, everyone. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Kiana Winstead, and I'm going to dive into our next topic, which is Spotlight. It's a personalized video reporting service that we offer here at Pearson, and it's now available to districts to opt in individually. This won't be provided on home base, but each district does have the option to purchase Spotlight. So we can jump right in. So what is Spotlight? Spotlight is a personalized video reporting service that we offer. We can take any type of data, excuse me, whether it be grades or converting ISRs from EOG and EOCs into a personalized video, which we like to call video score reports or VSRs, that speak directly to parents and caregivers to make student assessment data easy to understand how their student performed on assessments, and it provides actionable insight to best support student learning. VSRs are unique as they help bridge the communication between the teacher, parents, and caregivers to provide our students with the best possible outcomes for success by ensuring that parents understand the information we're sending home and how their student is progressing. VSRs can be accessed in various ways to include email, text, and the student's dashboard to make it accessible for families. For the 21-22 school year, we delivered over 6.3 million videos to parents and caregivers. We have the capability to translate VSRs to the native language of the student's household as well. And we delivered VSRs in 15 different languages across about 812,000 families, and about 5.5 million of those videos were delivered in English. So let's talk a bit more about the elements of a VSR that makes these videos unique. So the VSR includes a personalized title card custom to North Carolina, and the student's first name will appear at the beginning of the video, and it's also mentioned throughout, so the video is truly custom to the student. I also mentioned that we have the ability to translate the VSRs to various languages. For North Carolina, we are specifically translating for Spanish and English, voiceovers and closed caption. So not only can the parents hear their native language, but they can read text in their native language as well to ensure that families can interpret and digest the information, whether that be audio or via text. So VSRs will also have elements that are personalized by subject to include the student's score and performance level, ranging from exceeding expectations to below expectations. It can also be broken down into reporting categories and even a comparison of the data so parents can see how their student performed, excuse me, in comparison to other students in their school, at the school level and state level. One of my favorite features is the option for showing the students' growth to help families track their progression over time. You know, not only do we want to see how well the student performed, but we want to see if there was growth in that subject area as well to determine what steps need to be taken to ensure students master those various standards being tested. And tracking growth is a key element in accomplishing that goal. Lastly, the VSR provides a recap of the student's performance so parents and caregivers can get an overall view, of how their student is performing in that subject, and then equip the parents with next steps on how to help their child progress and meet their educational goals, which is a key element of the video score report. So now that I've shared a little bit about the elements of the video report, I would like to show an example of what a family may see when they receive a VSR following an EOC or EOG. So each video is about 4 to 8 minutes long, which is short enough to keep the listener's attention, but also provide them with the information that they need. So I am going to play an example for you.
No one knows a student better than the people closest to them. As a parent or caregiver, you have an important role to play in the journey of your student, from their first day of school all the way to high school graduation. By understanding their strengths as well as areas where extra support may be needed, you'll be able to partner with their teachers to make sure they have what they need to keep making progress towards their unique goals. Goals like being ready for success in college, a career, and life. To help you gain that understanding, we're providing you with this personalized video report for your student, Sarah. Tennessee has a responsibility to every student, including yours, to make sure they have learning opportunities that are preparing them for success after high school graduation on a path of their choice. One of the ways we check on students' progress is with the TCAP, an annual state test that measures grade level expectations in subjects like English Language Arts, also known as ELA, math, science, and social studies. Meeting grade level expectations means your student has a thorough understanding of the skills and concepts of the subject and is ready to be successful in the next grade. Of course, TCAP is just one of the many things you, your student, and their teachers will use to gauge progress, so it's important to consider these results alongside the report card grades and their other school activities. After lots of hard work in school, your student took the TCAP last spring. Let's take a look at what the TCAP can tell us about their progress. This is important information, and we encourage you to pause the video as needed. If you want to learn more, review your student's printed individual student report or explore the family portal. Let's dive in. In ELA, your student score is here. This result places their score in the below expectations category. That means they have not yet met grade level expectations and will need support in the year ahead. For reference, here are the school and state averages for other third grade students taking the same test. Each student will continue on their journey towards their goals in the school year ahead. One way to support your students' progress is to target specific areas in each subject. In English, these sub-score categories can tell you where your student is compared to those who are meeting grade level expectations. In this learning area, or areas your student's progress is lower than what's expected to meet grade level standards. Now let's take a look at your student's math progress. Their score is here. This result places their score in the met expectations category. That means they met grade level expectations and have a thorough understanding of the material. For reference, here are the school and state averages for other third grade students taking the same test. These math subscore categories or specific learning areas can tell you where your student is compared to those who are meeting grade level expectations. In this learning area or areas, your student's progress is lower than what's expected to meet grade level standards. In this specific learning area or areas, your student's progress is meeting expectations for their grade level standards. In this learning area or areas, your student's progress is higher than what's expected to meet grade level standards. What's next? First, talk to your student, Sarah. See how what they are learning in school is connected to their goals. Next, talk to their teachers. These TCAP scores are a great opportunity to start a conversation about how to help your student keep learning and growing. Also, click on the buttons below this video. These will take you to resources that are right for your student. There is also more information about their TCAP performance in the Family Portal. By using this information to plan to support your student in the next grade level, they will be able to make even more progress in the year ahead. By working together, we can ensure all Tennessee students continue forward on their chosen path to success.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Yes,
So
you are
I know
welcome.
we-
So,
Awesome. I know we're drawing close to the end of our time, so I will wrap up just by stating that I think the video is truly powerful. It not only gives us an opportunity to understand the purpose of the video, and I'm going to just go quickly through, but it allows the parent to understand the purpose of the test that they're taking and how to help their child in school, which are key components in making sure that the child progresses and matriculates throughout their education. Because we are drawing near to the close of time, the link that Rebecca has shared does include a brief video just about the power of DSRs and how they help families, and just provides a little bit more data about that. So I will turn it back over to Rebecca. And if there are any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and I will answer those for you.
if you have any additional questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. But all of the contact information is on the screen right now. If you do not have any questions, then we appreciate you joining us this morning for this session on Navvy and Spotlight. This recording will be posted on our NCDPI YouTube channel under the SchoolNet playlist for you to be able to reference later. And I will also email the recording out to anyone who attended. But other than that, we thank you for joining us, and we will hang out for any additional questions.